My name is Susanna Williams. I'm 32, and I've made a living turning silence into sentences people remember. For 8 years, I've worked as a copywriter at an advertising agency, crafting taglines, humor, and relatability for brands that barely know what they sell. Ironically, the only time my words ever went viral, I didn't even get the credit. It all began with Carl Cole. 29 magnetic smile, natural charisma, and a camera always pointed at himself. When we first met, he was charmingly insecure about his following. "Babe, you're the clever one," he'd laugh. "I just make faces and hope people click." I thought he was being humble. Turns out that was the first lie. At first, it felt harmless. He'd be filming a TikTok, someone would leave a snarky comment, and he'd ask, "Quick, what should I say back?" I'd toss out something playful. He'd post it. It would explode hundreds of thousands of likes, endless praise about his wit. I'd smile at the screen, quietly proud that my words made someone else shine. Helping him felt romantic, like being the secret hand behind a magic trick only we understood. But then, "Can you help me with this one line?" became daily script meetings at breakfast. I was writing jokes, skits, captions, even DM replies while he called it collaboration. And I told myself it was love, because isn't love supposed to be teamwork? He was making $10,000 a month from sponsorships. Me, I got thank you kisses and takeaway coffee. Then came the message. Tuesday morning. I was at work fixing ad copy for a toothpaste brand when my phone buzzed. A group chat notification, emergency, cringe control, Carl, Evan, Chris, and me. Except I wasn't supposed to be there. The first message was Carl's. "Guys, Susanna tried to tell that dumb joke again last night, the NASA one. I wanted to disappear. She thinks she's hilarious just because she writes ads." I blinked confused, then kept reading. Evan. "Wait, the same joke she made you post last month, Carl." "Yeah. People only laughed online because I delivered it well. She's so painfully unfunny in person. Chris Bro, at least she's cute. That helps. Carl barely. I'm basically her unpaid babysitter at parties. She tries to perform, and I die inside. Carl. Imagine thinking you're funny because your boyfriend has a platform." The screen blurred. My chest burned like static. That joke, they were mocking me for my own line. I stared at the chat for a long time. Then I typed slowly. "I've noticed." 3 words. No punctuation. No defense. Just truth. I locked my phone, placed it face down on my desk, and stared at the muted reflection on my monitor. My throat ached, but I didn't cry. Because what hurt most wasn't the insult. It was realizing how many times I'd laughed with him when all along he'd been laughing at me. I didn't text again. Didn't answer his calls. By lunchtime, he'd left 12 voicemails, each one switching from guilt to denial, from "you misunderstood" to "you're being dramatic." By 5 p.m., the last one simply said, "We need to talk. I'll come over. Your place is better for serious conversations." I remember whispering to my screen, "You're right. It'll be perfect for your last one." That night, I backed up every script, every caption, every draft I'd ever written for him. 4 8 and 12 files, each with my name on the metadata. I made coffee, poured it into my favorite chipped mug, and hit save all. He didn't know it yet, but Carl Cole had just posted his final piece of content written by me. When Carl showed up that night, he was dressed for forgiveness. Perfectly groomed beard, new shirt that still smelled like cologne, and a practiced frown that said, "I'm the good guy who made a small mistake." He stood at my doorway holding a bouquet of white lilies, my least favorite flowers. "Susanna, can we just talk?" His voice was low, gentle, like a salesman softening the pitch before closing the deal. I didn't invite him in right away. I just stared at him until the silence became unbearable. He took that as permission and stepped inside anyway. "You completely misunderstood that chat," he said quickly. "It was just guy talk. We joke around. It doesn't mean anything." I kept my voice even. "You called me unfunny. You said I make you want to disappear." "That's not what I meant," he insisted, pacing. "You know I exaggerate. You've done it too." "No," I said quietly. "I write. There's a difference." He stopped, eyes darting. "Oh, come on. You're seriously acting like I've been exploiting you. You just helped me sometimes. It's not like you wrote my whole career." That made me laugh, sharp and humorless. "Carl, do you want me to pull up the Google Docs? The text threads. The voice notes where you literally say, 'Just write something funny for me.'" He looked rattled, his jaw tightened. You're blowing this out of proportion. You make it sound like I used you. You did. He blinked. The words seemed to hit him harder than I expected. Then came the pivot, his favorite move. He sighed dramatically. Susanna, I'm sorry. Okay, I said some stupid stuff to my friends. Everyone vents about their partner sometimes. Not everyone trashes their partner while cashing checks from their jokes. He swallowed hard, then his voice turned defensive. Wow, you think you're so much better than me? Just because you can write, I'm the one with the audience. I'm the reason anyone even reads your words. That was the moment something inside me finally snapped, not loudly, but quietly, like a rope giving way after too much strain. I smiled. Then go prove it. He frowned. What go be funny without me? I walked to the door and opened it. You wanted to perform alone, right? The stage is all yours. He hesitated, eyes flickering between anger and fear. You'll regret this, Susanna. No, I said softly. You will. When he left, I locked the door, leaned my forehead against the wood, and exhaled for what felt like the first time in years. My apartment felt different, emptier, but lighter. That night, I backed up everything again. Emails, notes, recordings, every joke I'd ever ghostwritten for him. 5,047 pieces of content, all mine. I uploaded them to a cloud drive titled Ghosts of Carl. Then I waited. The next morning, he posted his first solo video. It was a brand deal for a coffee company, something we'd have normally brainstormed together. He opened with a forced grin and said, When life gives you lemons, make espresso. The comments were brutal. This feels awkward. Why does he sound like a corporate intern trying to be funny? Where's the old Carl? Engagement rate 2.1%. Before me, it had been 15. By the second week, his captions sounded like he was imitating someone else me poorly. People started noticing. This new vibe is weird. You okay, bro? You lost your touch. Brands began to back off. His agent stopped replying. Meanwhile, my inbox was full of work offers brands who had noticed the writing difference. Carl texted me on a Thursday. Please, just one last time. I need help writing this caption for a sponsor. I'll pay you. I typed a single sentence and hit send. You already did. I didn't block him, but I didn't reply again either. He called 5 times that night. I muted every one. By the end of the month, his online persona was unraveling like cheap thread. He looked exhausted in videos. His jokes landed with the heaviness of someone trying to be someone else. His empire wasn't collapsing with thunder, it was crumbling in silence. And the sound of that silence was the most satisfying thing I'd ever heard. Magnets only work if there's something to attract, I wrote in my journal that night. Without my words, he was just metal waiting to rust. By the 3rd week, Carl was desperate. He'd lost 2 brand deals and half his engagement, but he was still pretending everything was fine. The lies were piling up faster than the bills. Every time I opened social media, I'd see him grinning through another forced, funny skit, trying to convince his followers he was still the same clever guy they'd fallen in love with. Except the audience wasn't buying it. One morning I woke up to a comment that made me pause. Didn't your ex write your jokes? There it was. The rumor had started to spread. For 3 days I ignored it. I didn't want to get involved. But then Carl went live. He stared straight into the camera eyes, red voice, trembling just enough to sound human. People are saying horrible things about me online, he said. My ex is trying to ruin my reputation. I've always written my own stuff. She's just bitter because I moved on. Moved on, I actually laughed. The same man who'd sent me voice notes begging for help a week ago was suddenly claiming creative independence. That was the moment I stopped being silent. Not for revenge, at least that's what I told myself, but for truth. Because every time a liar tells their version of your story, you lose a little more of yourself. So I opened my laptop, created a new Twitter account. No photo, no name, and wrote, Fun fact, your favorite influencer has been taking credit for someone else's writing for years. Here's the proof. I attached screenshots, my drafts beside his posts, timestamps, voice memos, text messages, not his name, not his handle, just enough for people to connect the dots. The thread exploded overnight. #GhostwriterGate started trending. Within 12 hours, I had over 60,000 likes, thousands of retweets, and messages from strangers saying, This explains why his content suddenly sucks. By evening, every gossip page had picked it up. Carl tried to stay calm, posted an official statement about creative collaboration and mutual inspiration. But then someone found my old portfolio site. A screenshot from 2 years ago showed one of the jokes I'd written word for word, identical to his most viral post. The comments turned. So she really was the writer. All this time we were praising a fraud. Carl panicked. He recorded a 45-minute YouTube video titled My Truth. I watched it once, just once. He cried halfway through, called me emotionally manipulative and jealous of his success. He claimed he helped refine my ideas and that I'd taken things out of context. The performance was flawless if you didn't know him. But the internet did, and the comment section turned into an execution ground. So you admit she wrote your stuff, but somehow she's the manipulative one. This man really gaslighted his own ghostwriter. Apologize, Carl, and pay her. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I sat alone at my desk, the blue light of my monitor washing over my hands. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like exhaling after holding my breath underwater for months. I opened a message from an unknown account. A stranger wrote, "Thank you. I've been in your shoes. I wrote songs for my ex. He told everyone they were his. You're brave for speaking up." And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just my story. It was hundreds of ours. Carl kept spiraling. He posted another video, this time blaming cancel culture. He said he was being attacked for being successful. His followers weren't sympathetic. They were tired. He lost 30,000 followers in 2 days. Sponsors started pulling out. I received another text from him. "Are you happy now you destroyed me?" I stared at the message for a long time, then replied, "No, Carl, you destroyed yourself. I just stopped cleaning up after you." I deleted his number after that. The next morning, I opened my curtains for the first time in weeks. Sunlight spilled across my desk, hitting the coffee mug I'd been too numb to wash. It was chipped, stained with old coffee, and suddenly I loved it. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. The world finally knew my words, even if they didn't know my name. And for now, that was enough. He taught me that silence can be louder than any microphone I whispered to myself. But when the silence ends, it echoes. By the end of the month, Carl Cole's empire was burning, and he was still trying to convince the world it was a bonfire he'd lit on purpose. He posted upbeat stories pretending everything was normal. New projects coming soon, taking time for creativity and reflection. But the mask was slipping. The reflection was panic. His sponsorships vanished one after another. A fitness brand quietly deleted their collaboration post. A clothing company unfollowed him. His agent stopped answering calls. And then inevitably, his friends turned too. Evan, his loyal hype man, posted a cryptic story. Sometimes people bite the hand that writes for them. Everyone knew who it was about. Chris followed up with a TikTok about toxic exes who can't handle your success. The comments dragged him into oblivion. Imagine defending plagiarism. They're all frauds. And through it all, I said nothing. No subtweets, no interviews, just silence. I'd learned that truth doesn't need volume, it needs consistency. Carl tried to rebrand. Authentic Carl. Gone were the savage comebacks and witty captions. Now he was posting soft-lit photos of coffee mugs and healing quotes from Pinterest. "You can't cancel light," one caption read. The irony was cosmic. The followers didn't buy it. "This isn't you. Where's the funny guy, man? This feels like watching someone else's ghost." His engagement dropped below 1%. The algorithm forgot him like an ex who deleted your number but still remembers your birthday. Meanwhile, brands started reaching out to me quietly. Writers, comedians, small agencies. One message read, "Are you open to consulting? Your tone is sharp but human. We could use that." I wasn't chasing revenge. I was just writing again, this time under my own name. And people noticed. Then one afternoon I saw him. I was working at a cafe, downtown, laptop, open headphones, on pretending the world didn't exist. When I looked up, Carl was there, standing at the counter, ordering something he couldn't afford anymore. He looked smaller. Eyes, hollow hair, unkempt. Fame ages people faster than time ever could. He noticed me too. For a moment, his lips parted like he might say something. But then he didn't. He looked down at his phone, pretending to scroll, pretending not to see me. And that silence, that deliberate avoidance, was the most honest thing he'd ever done. I closed my laptop and left without a word. Outside, the sky was gray heavy, with the kind of rain that makes the world feel quieter. And as I walked, I caught my reflection in a shop window. For the first time in months, I saw a woman who wasn't trying to be anything for anyone. Carl kept posting for a while after that, videos of sunsets, gym selfies, empty captions about growth. But people weren't laughing anymore. They were watching out of pity. I overheard someone on the train say, "Remember that influencer who got exposed for stealing jokes? Whatever happened to him?" Oh, Carl, I think he's doing real estate now. The world had moved on. And for once, I didn't feel the urge to correct the narrative. I didn't need to, because I knew the truth. The only thing worse than being forgotten is being remembered for the wrong reasons. That night, I wrote in my journal again. Karma doesn't scream. It whispers through ruined engagement graphs and ghosted brand emails. Then I closed the book, exhaled, and finally let the quiet feel peaceful instead of heavy. It had been almost 6 weeks since I'd heard Carl's name spoken out loud. People had moved on to fresher scandals, newer idols to worship and tear apart. The internet's memory fades faster than a trending hashtag. I'd learned to live quietly again, late-night writing sessions, morning walks, coffee with real friends who didn't see me as a ghost behind someone else's glow. Then one evening, just as I was finishing edits on a campaign draft, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Susanna, this is Richard Cole, Carl's father." My chest tightened. I almost deleted it unread, but curiosity won. "He's not doing well," the next message said. "He's been shut in for days. Depressed. Barely leaving his room. I know you have no reason to help him, but maybe... Could you talk to him? He listens to you." I stared at the text for a long time. There was a time when I would have rushed over heart-pounding with worry. Now I just felt tired. I typed slowly. "Mr. Cole, with all due respect, your son built his career on my words and then mocked me for it. I don't owe him comfort now that he's lost the spotlight." He replied almost immediately. "He made mistakes. Everyone does. You knew how much pressure he was under trying to stay relevant, trying to be funny every day. It got to him. He didn't mean what he said." I bit my lip, staring at the glow of the screen. Pressure, insecurity, excuses dressed up as empathy. They always protect the talented man who didn't mean it. "Insecurity doesn't excuse exploitation," I finally wrote. There was a pause, then one more message appeared. "He loved you. He just didn't know how to handle your talent overshadowing his." I could almost hear the familiar defense behind those words, the same one Carl had used every time I caught him lying. Love as an apology. Ego disguised as affection. If he really loved me, I wrote back, he would have celebrated my talent instead of stealing it. No response after that, just a read receipt. I sat there, phone in hand, realizing how full circle it had all come. Months ago, I would have given anything to hear the words "he loved you." Now they felt hollow. The next morning, I got another message, this time from an unknown email address. It was from Carl himself. The subject line read, "I'm sorry." I hovered over it for a long time before opening it. It wasn't an apology. Not really. "Susanna, I know I messed up. I don't know how to be funny anymore. Everything I write sounds like you. I think about you every day. I miss your ideas, your humor, your voice." He didn't miss me. He missed the creative oxygen I gave him. The validation, the words that made him somebody. I closed the email and whispered to the empty room. "Then maybe it's time you learn how to breathe on your own." I never replied. 2 days later, a gossip account posted that Carl had checked into a mental health retreat. The comments were filled with sympathy. "Fame is hard. He deserves a second chance." I didn't comment. Empathy didn't mean I had to rebuild what he'd burned. That night, I lit a candle on my desk, a small ritual I'd started doing before writing. The flame flickered against the window pane, reflecting two faces in the glass. The woman who used to write for someone else's story, and the one finally writing her own. I whispered to the reflection, half a prayer, half a promise. No more unpaid work. Not with words, not with love. Then I opened my laptop and began typing a new script, one that would belong entirely to me. The irony was almost poetic. Carl had spent years building an empire on my words, and now those same words were the reason mine were finally being heard. It started small. A message from a social media manager at Comedy Central. "We've been following your posts. Your writing has a sharp emotional rhythm that people respond to. Would you be open to freelance work?" I stared at that email for nearly a full minute, heart-pounding, half convinced it was a prank. But it wasn't. Within a week, I was writing jokes for their online campaigns under my real name, credited, paid, respected. Each check that landed in my account felt like justice in slow motion. Each meeting where someone said, "We loved your tone," felt like air filling a space that had been empty for too long. Meanwhile, Carl's reappearance online was pitiful. His followers had dwindled to a fraction, his posts a clumsy mixture of self-reflection and desperate clickbait. He'd become the punchline in an industry that once worshipped him. Then one morning, while sipping coffee at my kitchen table, my phone rang. A Los Angeles number. "Hi, Susanna. This is Astra Carlson from Hulu Development. I've read about the ghostwriter story yours, and we think it has the bones of a limited series. Would you be interested in developing it with us?" I nearly dropped my mug. "A show. About my life. About the betrayal, the public humiliation, the revenge that wasn't revenge, but recovery." I asked for time to think, but inside I already knew. It was time to turn pain into profit. The next few weeks were a blur of meetings, contracts, and story pitches. They wanted the series to explore the blurred line between love authorship and ownership. I wanted to make sure it told the truth, that sometimes the person you trust most will build their entire identity out of your words and convince you it's love. When the deal was announced publicly, I didn't even tag Carl, but the internet did it for me. Wait, isn't this literally about him? The ex-influencer must be screaming right now. And scream he did. Carl resurfaced with the shaky TikTok eyes red tone indignant. I can't believe she's stealing my story. That show is literally about me. She had access to my creative notes. I laughed so hard I nearly cried. The comments were merciless. Sir, the story is about you stealing from her. The delusion is performing better than your engagement. Imagine trying to plagiarize your own downfall. I didn't even have to respond. The world did it for me. The next week, my contract with Comedy Central expanded. They offered me a full-time position as head of digital writing. I walked into that office on my first day with trembling hands, heart full of gratitude. As I sat at my new desk, I looked around the team, 5 young writers, eager, creative. All of them hungry, but humble. I said, "In this room, everyone gets credit. Always." Their faces lit up, and I felt something loosen in my chest, a weight I didn't know I'd been carrying. That night, I got a message from an unknown number. The area code was Carl's hometown. "You won. Hope it feels good." I didn't respond. Winning wasn't the point. Freedom was. I looked around my small apartment, the same one I'd once cried in after reading that cruel group chat. Now it was filled with warmth notebooks, half-drunk coffee cups, and the steady hum of a laptop where I wrote only for myself. As I stared out the window, the city lights blinking like distant applause, I whispered, "He was right about one thing. I really did have the last laugh." The premiere night of Unpaid Intern felt like stepping into a dream I'd written years before I ever knew how the ending would go. The theater was small, but packed executives, journalists, actors, people I'd only ever seen in blue check marks. They called my name as the creator. And for the first time when the applause rose, I didn't look for someone else beside me to share it with. I sat in the dark as the first episode began the scene, where a woman quietly types jokes at a kitchen table while her boyfriend takes the credit. The audience laughed at all the right moments, then fell silent at the painful ones. I watched an actress play my younger self, trembling smile, hopeful eyes, heart wide open. It felt like watching a ghost finally find peace. After the credits rolled, a producer turned to me and said, "People are going to feel this. It's not just funny, it's personal." And it was. Because Unpaid Intern wasn't just my story, it was every creative who'd ever been told their work mattered less, because it came from behind the curtain. The show trended for a week straight. Articles called it a biting, cathartic masterpiece. Messages poured in from women and men who'd lived the same story in different forms. My ex stole my music. My boss published my design. Thank you for writing what we couldn't say. I answered as many as I could. Each one felt like reclaiming a small piece of something that had once been taken from me. Carl didn't congratulate me. Of course he didn't. But one evening after an interview taping, I scrolled through my notifications and saw a comment under a post promoting the show. A familiar username. No profile picture, just a blank circle. He'd written, "Good for you. I hope you're happy now." I hovered over it for a second. Then I smiled and typed back, "I am." Then I blocked the account. A week later, someone sent me a screenshot from a real estate agency's Instagram page. Carl's new job. He was running his father's company's social media. Every post had that same fake cheerfulness he used to weaponize online. The captions tried to sound witty but came out forced. The top comment on one of them read, "This feels unfunny." Poetic justice rarely looks dramatic in real life. Sometimes it's just quiet symmetry, like the echo of your own words coming back years later from the wrong mouth. My show got renewed for a second season. The network wanted to explore what happens after the revenge when the main character realizes closure isn't a headline. It's a quiet morning with sunlight on your coffee mug and no need to prove anything to anyone. During a writer's panel, someone in the audience asked, "Susanna, what did you learn from everything that happened?" I thought for a long moment before answering. That love built on silence eventually collapses, and that the loudest revenge is living quietly with your own name on the work. There was applause, but this time it didn't sound like validation. It sounded like freedom. Later that night, I walked home alone through the city. The air was cool, the streetlights humming faintly. I stopped at a crosswalk and glanced at my reflection in a shop window. Calm eyes, small, smile, shoulders relaxed. I didn't look like a ghost anymore. Back home, I lit a candle, opened my laptop, and began outlining a new project, something original, something mine. Before typing the first line, I whispered, "Here's to every unpaid intern who finally got her name on the screen." Then I smiled fingers on the keys and wrote, "Fade in."